Or is he still on one?
We're live.
We're not on one anymore?
We're not on one.
We've hit the moment. Hi! What episode is this? 68?
68.
Episode 68 of the Wide Awake in Babylon podcast. I'm Chris. That's Tom. That's Wally. And there's Isaac. Isaac, one of my favorite people in the world.
Hey,
that's the topic of the day.
Yep. He perseveres through things I've never watched anybody else have to do. So, kudos to you.
Well,
I'm glad you put Job in a casket.
Did I?
It was time for Job to go to heaven. He just had to go.
Just the person always suffering, is that who you're referring to?
Well, Job in the Bible, right?
Yeah, but
where God basically backed away and let Satan do whatever he wanted to him to test Job's faith, and Job never broke faith. But he suffered.
Yeah.
I know a few of those in my life.
Just people that suffered nonstop.
And I don't know if it's because, it's not like they're whining. They're just suffering. Right. And I don't know. I mean, that could be one way of living on this planet.
I heard.
Who knows what you did before? Who knows why you fell from grace and ended up, in this reform school called Planet Earth? Who knows? They might just, it's like you get some of these Catholic priests that got to whip themselves and shit, right? Like the Opus Dei. If they have a sexual thought, you got to whip yourself. Or they have this thing that goes around your leg with spikes in it. You got to cinch it down.
I went in Lima. They had that Catholic church there, and you got to take a tour through it. And when you went through that flatulation room, it was like the vibe was ooh.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, that whole place. The vibe is ooh.
Well, you're walking over skulls under the floor. The catacombs are like exposed.
When they have those like dioramas. So like when you're in that church, you're talking about the Catholic Church across from the presidential palace in the square.
Yeah.
So those little dioramas they have representing each of like
the popes that've been there, the different members.
The different people of the Bible. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there staring at them. I swear to God, they started moving.
Oh, I would believe
like a horror movie.
Oh, it was scary.
It's cryptic at best. It's cryptic.
Yeah,
because they got all the saints and the little alcoves and those places always kind of trip me out a little bit.
Yeah, a little weird.
That one for sure, because some shit went down there.
Oh, you go through the catacombs underneath, and it was after being in the jungle for a month, so you're real sensitive and like, whoa, get out of here.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that it seems like when Europeans and natives mix, it doesn't go very well.
No, there's a big diversity between just income, right, in Peru for that same reason.
Yeah. Well, that's why you got Miraflores, which is ritzy, and everything else is questionable. From our standards. If everybody lives questionably, it's not questionable. It's normal.
It's normal, yeah.
Right. So when we look at it, we go, oh my God, it's like, it's normal for them. It doesn't, because I think for us, when we look at dilapidated everything, we think criminal activity. Right. Mm-hmm. Which poverty is it against, is it a crime to be poor?
No.
Right. So if everybody has to live that way, then it's just normal everyday life. We're not using houses and neighborhoods to determine class, right? Something else would be determining that, right? And, it's interesting how that works across the planet in different places. Like in China, my cousin goes there all the time because he's got a business over there. And he had told me once, he's like, I said, are there rich people in China? He goes, oh, yeah. Yeah. This is what, do they drive around Beamers, live in big houses? He's like, no. Everybody pretty much drives the same thing. I don't know if it's true anymore. This was years ago. And that everybody pretty much lives in the same kind of house. So what gave you status and class was the kind of cigarettes you bought and the restaurants you ate at. Right? So like a pack of cigarettes to prove your class were like $30-$40 American. Right? And that's how they would do it. Right? Here you got the McMansion, right? You got the Land Rover and the Volvo or whatever it is you got sitting there, right? And everything's perfect. Yeah, that's our status kind of thing that we do it. And in Peru, status, I think, there, depending on where you're at, in the jungle, I think it's like power, right? The power you can have to like actually get something done,
Or even just the Brujo battles that Enrique's told us about, where they go and shake each other's hand. They're doing like energy battles, and then one of them will drop over. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you ever wander into what you think is the ayahuasca ceremony, it ends up being a Brujo battle. That shit gets pretty heavy duty. You're like, whoa, what is happening here? That person is jealous of that person, and that person is envious of that person, and they're battling that out right now for dominance, right? To be the king, to be the head honcho, El Jefe.
Yeah, there's a lot of machismo.
We have other things going on than they do, so, what their arena for life experience is going to be a lot different than ours. I like going back and forth between them all as much as you can. Don't get too comfortable in one way of living because it might change on you. You never know. So, the one thing we're not going to talk about, although we're going to talk about it, but we're not going to talk about it.
Just going to mention it.
This is the pre-alien invasion episode.
If you want drone information about the drones in the sky, or I don't really have an opinion about it yet. I mean, I have an idea, but I don't have an opinion. There's plenty of that on. Have you seen? There's just nothing else. Everything is that. Everything is that.
A few things came
It's
across.
pretty interesting. I'm definitely excited to see, where it goes and how it unfolds.
I will say, this is the only thing I have to say about it. If something lands in your yard and it's made of metal, run. Just run and don't look back.
And what's the alternative to that?
If they land as, let's just say, if a liquid light ball floats around, like an orb, not really, a ball of liquid light starts circling around, right? And then it drops and someone is now standing there. Yeah, listen to that. Don't run from that. But I think people would actually run from that. Like, what's going on here? Luminous beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them necessarily light beings, because light beings is a big category.
Oh.
Because are they emanating it from within, or are they stealing it from, unwitting populations and adorning themselves with it? With a real black heart.
Can you feel that difference, though? I would think so.
Well, I don't know if anybody really has that level of sensitivity. I mean, I think it can be developed, and I think, if you're on a different path of life that kind of has that involved in it, then, yeah, you could probably sense it pretty easily.
So. Yeah.
Like when someone's coming in all shiny, and you recognize that, oh, that's a temporary little fairy dust.
Well, that's the reason I'm saying is because in people you can see that the people will adorn them with the adoration of others, and then they'll be a celebrity or whatever. And we talked about it last time. But if somebody's coming from presence, it's a different emanation. You can feel that difference.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, because for me, it's like I look at like celebrities. They're just people with real big problems, and a lot of people paying attention to them. Mm-hmm. But like living down in the Four Corners area, when an elder Native American comes walking through the door, like a Navajo guy who has never strayed from what that was, walks in the door, man, that's a thing. That really is a thing. It's like, wow, you can feel it. You feel presence. I mean, his? No. It's emanating off of him, but you feel the presence. Because if you feel it in you, that's not his, that's yours. Right? So it's almost like they come in. Carlos was like that. He'd come down and sit down next to me, and it was almost like my consciousness would expand just by him sitting there. Just, everything would get clearer. My mind would get quieter. I wouldn't be so fidgety, nervous, terrified about what the hell he's going to do to me today. What kind of situation he put me in to test my stress barriers and, things of that nature. Yeah. But, I had an experience with those. Did I have said that? Have I talked about this on the podcast?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
Because this is where everybody goes, oh, you're full of shit.
I like
my aunt asked me what I was on. I've seen things in the skies up here. I've lived up here for 30 years. We're in the mountains. There's really, there's some light pollution, but not enough to to dampen the skies. They're dark. Mm-hmm. And I remember me and my ex-wife, we had first moved here. It was like 1992, wintertime. And we were in this house at Wagon Tongue, which is down the hill over there. And you could see across this meadow and then like a forest beyond it. And we were watching these lights come down, and they were hitting the tops of the trees with like a beam. red. First it was red, and then this kind of auric, like, I don't know, like a gaseous light would spread across the top of the trees and all be red, right? And then it'd be orange, and it'd be yellow, and it'd be green, and then it'd be blue, like all the colors of the primary colors of the rainbow. And then it would just keep doing that. It did it for like 3 or 4 hours. And then there was another one where this one was kind of weird because it made me kind of understand what abduction might be, because I think it almost happened to me. I mean, yeah, I'm going to, this is crazy stuff, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Same house. And all of a sudden I see this light land in the field, it kind of dropped down. And I get up out of bed and I walk outside, and there's a ship there, and there's 3 guys standing there, and they've all got these black, uniforms with this insignia that had like a triangle and like a world in it, like a planet or something. And they looked at me and they said, come with us. And I looked at one of their patches and it was kind of hanging off. So I grabbed it and peeled it back, and what I saw was an emblem that had 3 snakes intertwined. I was like, what the fuck? And then I woke up in my bed. But the reason I say that I can understand what that abduction thing might be, it was dreamy. It was like it was happening, no doubt. But to be able to place it in any kind of frequency or dimensional space, hard to tell, because everything seemed, I don't know, etherical, almost like floaty on the edges. You know what I mean? It's like a little fibrous on the edges. It's not solid. You know what I mean? You get these like you're somehow, something's a little different in the interaction. Yeah, and then I just woke up in my bed. And, those.
Were you in your bed before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do remember, the act of getting out of my bed and walking outside and walking over to them. Yeah. And then my daughters, one day, were outside. I just see this line of light in the sky. I'm like, what is that? And I said, look at that. They're looking up. Just a line in the sky. And all of a sudden it turns to move, and it's a disc. And like a pancake, the classic. Just buzzing around, right? Showing its full thing. Because if it turns sideways, you can barely see it. It's like a line of light. But the minute it turned, the reflection from the sun, you could see the whole thing. And they're just like standing there. And I looked at him and said, it's okay. So you guys are probably going to have to deal with this in your lifetime. And here we are. Maybe have to deal with it in our lifetime.
Maybe.
All right. So here's my story. It's out there. I don't expect anyone to believe it. It's the same story I've always told. Doesn't change. So should we? Yeah. We'll see if people are interested in this. So I had this friend Chip, and I've talked about him before. He was the guy that kept me from falling apart after Carlos died. And he had come out to visit, and we were living up here, right? So we were living where the church is, down that road. And we were coming back from Woodland Park to our house one night, and we're driving, and there's this place called Divide where you're like at the top. It's like everything leads up to Divide, so it's like a pass. It's the top of Ute Pass, basically, isn't it? I think it's the top of Ute Pass.
Yeah, it is.
So you can see forever up to the top. We're driving through there, and I look up, and there's this light hovering in the sky, right? And I look at it, and I looked at Chip. I said, look, dude, it's a UFO, right? He's like, no, that's a plane. And then it goes up into the clouds and then drops back down, right? I'm like, you sure that's a plane? He's like, yeah. And then we're looking at it, we're checking it out. It keeps doing it. It's like, it seemed like it was trying to get our attention, right? The minute we looked at it, it started to really move. And so we get to the place where you're driving down, and now you can't see that part of the sky because you got the cliff walls when you're driving through the canyon. And, just kind of, we're talking about it, and we come pretty much out of the canyon down into Florissant, and hadn't seen it. And all of a sudden I look in my rearview mirror, and it's out our back window about 30 feet up and 50 feet back, floating right behind us. Right? I'm like, look, Chip, look. And he turns around, he sees it. So we drive through Florissant, we go on the dirt road, and it's just riding along the side of us, maybe 30 feet out the window. So now it's sitting on the side instead of behind us. And then we're driving, it's just following, right? And then we go to turn on that road where the church is, because we lived about a half mile back. And this thing goes rocketing over our head, right? And it lands in the national forest, and you see this big bright flash, right? So we drive down the driveway. We get parked at the house. And where we lived there was a gate to that national forest. So I get out of the car and I start heading for the gate to open it to go into the national forest. Chip looks at me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to go check that out. There's just no way. I'm going back there. And we had this guy staying with us, someone that a friend of ours' son was hanging out with us for a while. His name was Josh. And he comes running out. He's like, did you guys see that? I'm like, yeah, we're going to go check it out. So we all three go off into the woods, right? We're walking around. And the minute you went past the gate, the surreal feeling, I mean, there was definitely like a presence of something there. And I couldn't see anything, but like a presence, right? I could feel it, like sacred almost. Well, truly. And so we were walking around, and you would see these banks of light in all the aspen groves, right? It's about high, maybe 3 or 4 feet off the ground, but it'd be a bank of light just sitting at the base of the aspens in an aspen grove, not in the fields in between. So the landscape is aspen grove, meadow, aspen grove, meadow, aspen grove, meadow. It's just all the way up to the top. And so we're looking in there, right? And I'm like checking it out. And Josh goes, oh, look at the pretty light. And he goes running into the aspen grove. And when he does that, all that light jumped up into the trees. And you felt like, not like fear, but like deep concern for, oh my God, like even like the very, whatever that was feeling it kind of thing. Right. And because Josh runs into that light and falls flat on his face, and all the light jumps up in the trees. He just passed out like narcolepsy. Just rip, boom. He just hit the ground. So I get Chip. I mean, we had to get him out of there. So we pull him out, and he has sweat, cold sweat. I mean, his jeans are soaked. So he's laying there. He's got a can of tonic, right? And he had that look on his face like Pip with the ball in the Lord of the Rings, like terror and so I'm kind of like, Josh, dude, wake up. So finally we get him to come to, and he starts heading to the house. So where are you going? He goes, I'm going home. I said, you're staying with us. And I said, don't do that again, man. Don't go in there. So we were kind of carefully meandering around, going through the little the meadows, just circling all the aspen groves. And I look over at my friend Chip, and I said, hey, if there's any Chip, it's going to probably be at the top in the big meadow. So we go hiking up there, right? Avoiding the aspen groves. They all have the light in them. The feeling is, I mean, I don't know what to compare it to. It's like, would I compare it to psychedelics? Yes and no. The amplification of everything was there, but a clarity that you don't usually get with them. You kind of have to fight for the clarity in psychedelics. This was right there, like part of you, almost like your soul is just sitting there, pressurizing, like right here and right here. I want to describe it, but it's impossible. It's the most beautiful feeling in the world. And so we go up to the top of the meadow, and there's like a low cloud hanging over it, right? And Chip looks at me. He's like, do you think we might be having a group hallucination? Like, I'm like, I pinch him. I'm like, we're awake, right? This is really happening. We look up, and there's these 3 orbs just doing like a little pattern above our heads, just floating above our heads, right? And I look over in the meadow, there's this aspen grove. It's the biggest one up there. It's huge. It just takes up this big south side of the meadow. And I'm standing there, and I'm watching all of that light that was in the aspen groves. It's all piling into this big aspen grove, stacking and getting brighter and brighter, more luminescent, to where it's like light's coming off of it, lighting up the woods. Right? And all of a sudden I hear this frequency in my head, like a real high-pitched noise. And then that whole feeling of presence of soul was amplified beyond my imagination for sure. And all of a sudden that big bank of light, a big bright light, starts spinning in it. And boom, suddenly there's a man standing there. Right? He's got long hair and a beard and a white robe. And I'm just looking at him like, whoa, this is intense. And I have 2 people there. We're not on anything. And they, and I look at Chip. Chip's crying. You just see tears streaming down his face because you can feel it. Josh is just kind of stunned. Like, what is this? But he was a kid. He was a novice. He hadn't really been involved in anything. He didn't really know that. I mean, a lot of my friends, when they would experience like higher states, vibratory states in their body, it would freak them out. It wasn't something that fascinated them. Some of them were quite terrified of that. And Josh wasn't quite terrified, but you could tell that it kind of stupefied him. So he was kind of just catatonic over there. Right. And I see it. And then suddenly there's these other points of light in there. And now there's a bunch of people standing there. Right. There had to be 40 in all. Women, men, children. The children were all androgynous. I couldn't tell if they were male and female. So I look at one of them. I'm like, is that a boy or a girl? And one of the women, it's like telepathic communication. She says they don't choose till they're 8. Right. It was quite intense. And then, so there was like this exchange, energetic, presence, vibratory, like love, like I've never known it, just flowing back and forth. Right. If they would have said, come with us, I would have said, if it's a possibility, I'm on board. Bye, everybody. Because it was that amazing. And it felt a lot like what I'm after in this life. Right. That presence, the world is the world. It's going to do the world. You're not going to stop it. You have no control over it. The only thing you have control over is how you're going to react to all the things you don't have control over. That's pretty much the gist of it, and you learn how to do that if you pay attention. Spirit will show you. Your soul will show you how you handle situations so you don't get so entangled in things that you forgot that there is quite a magical thing called being alive that you're doing every moment of every day. And the accesses you have are amazing. Anyway, they all went back to light, lifted up out of the trees, reformed that liquidy light ball. It rolled over and it was gone. Just like it rolled and it was gone. Not shot across the sky, just rolled and was gone. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I'll say that my aunt, when I told her that, she said, what were you on? I mean, there's always, oh my God, this guy thinks he fucking had an encounter. He's just high. Look how much weed does that guy smoke? I mean, there's all those comments that fly, but I don't care because it's experiences like that have kept my spirits high, that have kept depression far from me, that keeps anxiety. I don't even know what that is. It's baffling to me. That, wow, this is your life. You make your choices, your decisions, right? That's your responsibility. How come you're reacting to all of this with anxiety? Is that all you have? It shocks me. Because to me, it's like, no, this life is an adventure. And it's not an adventure in consumption and material objects. It's an adventure in consciousness. Here you can feel things on so many frequencies, dimensions, and levels from the most low to the most high. What an amazing thing, right? But I don't know if we're ever going to get back to realizing that one of the things that are the most valuable in you is your feelings, not your emotions and your thoughts about everything, the way you feel within. That has to be important. Because the minute that becomes important, then you can open up to all kinds of interchanges, exchanges with things and beings and trees and just the wind in ways you can't as this modern human being, fixated on a screen and looking to talk about whatever the narrative is that's being flown out there. Right? It's like, you kind of have to, it's in moments like these, you just got to stop with social media because it's just fucking drones. At least mine is. I don't know. Maybe people are just still seeing other things. I'm not sure, but it just seems like that's so much talk about it. And it's the same thing being said over and over again. And it's like, is this another distraction? Yes. From what is this? And I don't know what it's going to take to get humans to once again acknowledge that life is looking out of their eyeballs and they know nothing about it. Nothing. They know what they're doing with it to an extent, but they don't know anything about it. They don't know how all this is. It's like you can, chop up an eyeball and show me what it's made of, but you don't know what's animating that, how that came to be, and what's empowering that. What is this battery that's animating you as you through your whole life? What is that? And to me, that's always been the most interesting thing. All this other stuff, it has its moments of being interesting. My life has definitely had many moments of excitement over things in the world, activities in the world. But inevitably, I always fall back to, I've had enough of that. What is this again? And I try to, the way you can try to not lose momentum is don't forget. And, it's like, because if you forget, then you have to remember, right? Remembering is hard. Forgetting is easy. So if you don't forget, you don't have to remember, right? Which means you're going to have to clear some stuff so you have enough energy that can be applied to freeing up your will enough to have some awareness on what is actually going on as far as how you feel inside, right? Because people think it's circumstances. It's not. It never has been. I mean, I have felt bliss being poor and bliss being, financially stable. I've witnessed it in both places, right? The ultimate high of the moment, right? The highest dimension frequency I could reach. It was equally as intense being poor or rich. And it actually made me fixate more on the value of that this consciousness we're living life with has a value, right? And it's probably, it is the most valuable thing. Without it, you don't have anything to value, right? And it's very hard to watch the society let themselves be distracted from that and just get into all kinds of narratives, all kinds of ideologies, fixations, political warring, all this crap, just crap, constant. The music is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. There's the underground. That's always been, the best. But this stuff that everybody's being fed in the media is horrendous. Horrendous. Literally.
Well, even movies and TV shows now. I think we were talking about that the other day, how I feel like there's like no heart kind of in like media these days. There's like not much message in there. Things aren't very philosophical at all.
A lot of things lack authenticity, and that's what we're kind of craving is authentic connection, authentic words, people, actions.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in order for us to have done any of this, there had to be a surrogate reality laid on top of everything. I found, like a platform to build all this on, right? But underneath, that's not everything. I mean, it's like a platform laid on top of a world that was there before it, and I've always had more affinity for, the planet, nature, that, instead of everything everybody's doing on it. Even myself, it's like, man, what are we doing any of this for, right? You kind of get to that place with drive down the road, sitting in traffic. I look at everybody, and it's like, you want to think, where's everybody going? But like, really, where are you going? You know what I mean? So like, there's a way to entertain yourself by seeing your little idiosyncrasies while you're in traffic. Worst place to be. Oh, I don't want to be. No, I don't like it. If it's traffic, sometimes you get stuck and you go to the airport. It's traffic. But, it's Denver traffic. I can't complain. It's not that bad. It's not like LA traffic.
It's not LA traffic.
But, it's like the worst place for me to be. Because you can't go anywhere. Right? You are subject to all of these strangers. And hopefully none of them go nuts on you. Right? You don't know. There's plenty of videos of people going nuts on each other. I mean, does that make it real? Well, I've seen it myself. So, it's getting a little closer to home.
There's so much tension right now. I feel like at any point, just someone could pop,
It just doesn't need to be. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, how would I put it? It feels like if you step into maturity, you just accept what you're seeing and don't let it affect the way you feel, but check in with all the feeling within, the energy, the power, the presence, the soul. Just give it to it. It'll let you know what to do when it's time to do it. And, and if it's your time to go, well, everybody has time that it's time to go. I don't know. Are you going to be able to stop that? No. Death will happen to you.
Yeah.
Right? And if it might be in an adventurous way. Is that a bad way to go? I don't know. I mean, would you rather die like being a freedom fighter, or would you rather die in a hospital with a tube down your throat?
I mean, for me, obviously, I know the answer, freedom fighter, but, other people, that might not be their answer.
No, I just want to go lay and be, have life support and just let all my family stare at me while I wither away. That's a sad thing to see. I don't want to do that. Die with your boots on, man.
There's such resistance I see in people. Like, they have so much resistance just to like feel like to just really live. Like they're afraid to like really live.
Because
you know?
to really live means you have to have presence.
Yeah.
You'll have to have energy. You'll have to have a will of your own.
And fear too. I think fear is like, for me, I see that, and fear is such a thing for everyone, you know, like afraid of what might happen if I do this, or what will be the outcome.
Well, your culture is designed for everybody to be subservient to each other, right? That's how we police each other, right? Subservience. Mm-hmm.
I'm not very subservient.
So part of that, well, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's like two people meet. It's like someone's always taking the one down position, like seeing themselves lower than the other. I mean, I don't see anybody higher, or lower, or anything. I just go, hey, how are you? There's another soul standing in front of me. I don't know what it's doing. It's not my business. You know, I'm always interested in meeting people.
Well, you might even see it like that, talking to someone, and they might see it a lot of times as you think that you're above them, you know? It's like that's the reaction more oftentimes than not.
Yeah, that's the
fortunately.
thing. I think that's the thing you got to really be aware of when you interact with people is, you know, you could be seeing them genuinely, but they might not be seeing you the same way. So you got to be able to like understand how they're viewing you to an extent. I mean, you don't have to get weird about it or obsessive about it.
Yeah.
But to me, that helps you interact with them. Like I remember there was a friend of ours, and she was this, you know, she was like a clairvoyant type lady. Interesting woman. Kind of crazy. Yeah, well, yeah, kind of crazy. Seems to be what happens when you're in those circles. But she was going to this healer, like, I don't know, a gathering thing. It was off in Pine, Colorado, this big house. There's all these healers there, right? And when I walked in the door with her, because I look like this, right, the long hair, and I was instantly seen as like, he doesn't know anything. Here's a freshie, here's a greenhorn, here's a novice to, well, let me tell you about spirit.
Because you have long hair?
I just, I don't know. It was the youthful, I guess maybe it looks rebellious. I don't know what people's impressions are, but their impression was she's brought in this child of a man who needs to learn about these things. It didn't go so well.
Yeah. What happened? Or you don't have to say.
Well, I mean, you know, and like I said, I've been at this for a very long time, most of my life, like really just diving in and going to some crazy, you know, edges of sanity. Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot of suffering, a whole lot of suffering. And, you know, I feel like I've done a lot of work, right? You know, a lot on myself, tons of it. Is there a lot? Yeah, I'm kind of a gregarious creature in the universe, and I probably got a lot of shit to fucking repent for. So it's taken me a lot longer than, you know, it probably would if, you know, it was anyone else. But I'm doing it nonetheless, you know. And so I go in there, and they don't see that. Mm-hmm. They just want to know what you know about Reiki, what you know about, you know, hands-on healing, what you know about chakras.
And you said, I don't know anything.
I'm like, I have no idea about any of that. Oh, let us teach you. And it's like, you know, and I'm sitting there, and I remember thinking to myself, do they even recognize, you know, that I have done some work myself, and probably a little more real, because what they have is clients. What I had was working on myself, right, for a long time. You go, the minute you have clients, when's your work getting done? You know what I'm saying? You're putting all your energy in someone else, you know. But anyway, this lady's like, wanted to do Reiki on me so bad. I'm like, no, it's not a good idea. You know, I was in the process of some things. This is just not a good idea, right? She's like, no. So they all kind of, you know, get their thing. Pretty much force you to do it unless you're going to look like a jerk. So I said, all right. I lay down on the table. She starts doing her thing. She gets over to the left side. She just kind of looks at me, like really terrified. I'm like, yeah, that's probably not anything you want to mess with. And she just puts it over again and freaked the fuck out and ran out of the house. Seriously, she flipped the fuck out. Oh my God! And grabbed her purse and out the house she went. And everybody else is just looking at each other like, what was going on? And then they're all looking at me like, what the
Are you
fuck is wrong
demon
with you?
possessed or something?
Yeah, or so, I don't know. Whatever they thought. Inevitably, that's, there was definitely something in there that I got rid of, a couple years later in the jungle. It's interesting because this purging the darkness out of you, the demons out of you. It's such a weird conversation because everybody's got different connotations and these words are abused. To purge all the stuff that causes you to behave in certain ways that make you diminish your well-being and actually stay in those states. I call those demons. They are an energetic configuration that gets locked inside of you and then you behave in that way, in the way it demands. In order for it to leave you alone, you're going to have to behave the way it demands. Like anxiety, right? It will soften when you decide to not go anywhere and draw the shades. But if you get up to go against the anxiety and leave your fucking house, well, that it's going to rise up in you, isn't it? Demanding that you stay home. Right? And then you'll come up with the excuse, yeah, I don't really feel like it. I don't want to go. It's like what you're doing is giving into anxiety. There are many times when the soul is looking at you. Hey, you need to get up and go do this. And you'll come up with 1,000 reasons not to. Right? And, well, how did I know it was the soul? It's like, well, you're going to have to act in the world until you figure out what's what. That's what Carlos always told me. He's like, Cristobal, the only way you're going to learn is you're going to live your life. What do you think you're going to go, put on a robe and wander around like Buddha and sit under a Bodhi tree and just eat nothing for the rest of your life? He's like, that's a fantasy. You're going to have to live your life. You're going to have to raise your kids. You're going to have to maintain things, while you're doing this. But that's where you learn. Right? What do you learn? You learn what guidance you're following. If you're paying attention, if you're following some nefarious thought in your head, you'll know pretty soon. If you're not numb, and if you're not a slave to, and you've given your will to anxiety, depression, worry, doubt, fear, what are other people going to think of me? That's a big one. I mean, that's really got a lot of people acting falsely because they're afraid of what people might think of them. Like someone sitting across from me and it's like, yeah, it's good to see you. And underneath, it's fucking, I want to kill you. People are afraid to actually express what's real. Right? Or to be honest. Because what is that going to do? Well, it's going to destroy your relationship, most likely. If you haven't been honest. You know what I mean? And it's very hard to really navigate all that. Right? Because is what someone telling you, is that genuine? Or are they afraid that if they tell you anything different, that you're going to look at them a different way and they don't want that? Right? I mean, that right there determines the level of consciousness you're going to exist at. Because it's going to take an awful lot of energy to hold those lines, to hold those barriers, to hold that depression. And you're going to feel it. At some point, you're going to just feel like, I don't think there's anybody who hasn't at some point felt their life was meaningless. And that's when it gets dangerous, right? Because, most people, my life is meaningless. They wake up the next morning, they dust themselves off, and then they start building up some, motivation and happiness again, or whatever you want to call happiness, right? But there are some that can't. They get lost in that. And that shit is just the rest of their life. And that, that's a tragedy, right? And the way that society is designed is to push you into that. I don't give a fuck what anybody says to me about anything. This society seems to have been designed to put pressure, unwarranted, unneeded, unnecessary pressure on every living thing on this planet. To put it in danger, everything. To the point where now there's just tension, there's just stress, there's just nervousness. There's just what the fuck is happening next. And there are plenty of people who can handle it. But for how long? Right? When do you say, and start flipping out that I've been holding, and I can't hold anymore? And I think that's what we're seeing is we're pushing it. Then, it used to be here's a little thing, boom, okay, and then it goes away. Everybody reacts to it, and it goes away. It seems like now it's just pushing closer to the edge. It's like you're a bunch of cows at a cliff, and it's about to send you over. You're all just backed up against each other like, fuck, we can't move another foot or we're going over the fucking cliff. You know what I mean? You know, and it's like, how do you hold presence in a situation like that? Right? And it's like, what dimension are you existing in? What world are you actually in? Right? This is weedy. This is going to get weird. Because there's other dimensions you can park yourself in, where you're right next to all that and it don't touch you. The Bible calls it, you know, those who seek the shelter of God are safe. It's what they're talking about. There's this element. It's almost like once you understand the value of what's looking out of your eyeballs, and you understand that you should be listening to that. And if you don't know how, you should figure that shit out before you do another thing. Right? And really listen. And really listen. First, it's going to be painful because it's going to tell you everything about you that's keeping you from it. I'm talking about the soul. First thing it's going to do is point out what's keeping you from it. And that's going to hurt. Because you're going to feel ashamed. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel worthless. You're going to feel like you've really done something wrong. It doesn't matter. It's not like God or a punishment, anything like that. It's within consciousness. When that bright light comes on, the first thing it's going to do is hurt your eyes. Right? But if you follow that guidance, it'll show you pockets of dimensions within any situation that you can occupy. Nothing happens to you. To abuse that is brujeria. Right? To never use that, to clean your behavior up so you don't have to use that, so you can actually move around the world without causing any harm. That's the real way. So that way, when you do need to use that, it's super powerful because it's supercharged. It's not being used in nefarious ways. It's just used to keep you and yours safe. That's all. It's nothing more than that. So, you know, like when Carlos is talking to Don Juan, and Don Juan says, you know, nothing's going to happen to me until it's my turn. And Carlos goes, what if someone comes to try to shoot you? He goes, I simply won't be there. That's what he's talking about. You know, the work, if it's really done right and well, and if you're really about it, you get to those places where, and it's not spooky, it's not evil. It's freedom. Because Don Juan would disappear in front of people all the time. Carlos did it in front of me. Right? Situations like that. I've been in situations where nobody saw me. Dude, I know if I was invisible, I don't know. Outside of their awareness bubble, that's for damn sure. So I don't think anyone disappears necessarily. I think they hit a vibrational frequency that your little bubble can't perceive. Right? That's why you don't live in bubbles. You stay open. You stay childlike. You stay, you know, curious. You don't say no to experiences that have a charge to them. You just don't. Well, it has a negative charge. Right. Go blow that shit up and get it out of you. To me, it's like if you feel the negative charge, go to the jungle. You'll get that out of you. Right? In the form of vomit and sweat. Right? And just weird tensions out of your body. Right? But if you follow that soul, it guides you to those things. You know, kind of like someone comes to do you harm. You're in the house and they don't even see you. It's like they're walking around you looking for you, and you're on the couch and they don't see you. Now, is that impossible? No, it's not impossible. Is it impossible for modern man? At the moment, yes. Because he hasn't shattered this desire to keep the foot on the gas pedal and not take a little break and pull over and see where the fuck he's actually at. It's just light speed into fucking chaos is what it looks like. I mean, if I look at the whole world and how it's happening, it does. It looks like light speed into chaos. And nobody's stopping to go, oh, wait a minute here. Yo. You guys need to slow the fuck down. And you need to realize what this life thing you're doing is. If you think it's about all that gadgetry, you're insane. Because what you're giving up for that is far more valuable than that thing itself. Right? And you'll never have control over that eventually. It's going to have control over you. Right? And that's not a good idea. You know, humans have been doing this forever. Most people can't add anymore because they use a calculator. They can't add in their head anymore. It's fucking, you watch them, it's like takes them 20 minutes to add things together. It's, yeah, Holmes.
So we use dominoes to find that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it's like, this is a machine. It's not you. If you think it's you, you're going to wear it out. But if you use it as a machine, it'll hum. Right? And it has nothing to do with your being alive other than it's the interface that you're living here with. It's not you. Your thoughts aren't you. Or your feelings are. Not your emotions. Those are thoughts. Energetically charged thoughts. There's feeling, presence, energy, vibration, frequency. That's what I'm talking about. Emotion, it's almost like it's a feeling that's gotten lost in chaos, and the chaos is the amount of thoughts wrapped around it. Mm-hmm. That just sits there and ties it up in a knot, right? Puts like limitations on the energy, and just sits there and you feel like it bust out of your skin. I know I've watched people do that in the jungle. In ceremony, you can see it. You can just see them. Those thoughts won't break loose. That energy is just trying to break loose. And then when those thoughts pop, it's almost like sparks coming out of their head. Literal sparks coming. I mean, when you're in that dimension, right? It's like the ayahuasca dimension. You're not hallucinating at all. You are basically peeling the layers of the onion so you can see deeper behind the scenes of what everything is. That's what you're really seeing, right? So you get to see the energetic configurations that create the behavior or the current feeling you're about to have. You got to actually see it not as an object, but as a crystalline form sitting out in front of you. Sometimes it turns into a fucking demon with a forked tongue. You're trying to eat you. Sometimes it turns into a giggling little girl that just pats you and shares love with you, where you feel like your heart's open and you feel innocent again. I mean, it just really does. All of that is real.
To me, in the ayahuasca, it feels like when the medicine goes in, that it's just spreading out through my whole body and going to all my cells. Mm-hmm. And then it's just kind of sitting there working with it for a while. And there's something that needs to come out. Then it's kind of just, it's gathering that energy from whatever part, like lower gut a lot of times. And it's coming there and it's like, and it's coming. It's like, it may be a second, maybe 10 seconds, maybe 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and it just grows and grows. And then it comes out. And as soon as it's out, you feel different. Oh. You are different.
Yeah, your thoughts are different.
Yeah, it's energetically purged in a way that's like, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that I had that heaviness, whatever that is.
Right. And, I just wish Westerners would come into it more as an open-minded people than with all this creepy shit around it or tension, nervous, worry, fear, any kind of preconceived idea about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you've never, if you haven't been there, I mean, there's other ways of doing it. I'm sure people have, so I'm not saying it's the only way by a stretch at all. But when you crack that shell and you stare into, beyond this reflection of yourself in a meat suit and all the meat suits around you, and you see beyond all that, there's nothing that anyone can say to you prior to that to help you understand that. But it's interesting that once the fear of that is gone and you ask people, it's the most familiar thing they've ever felt in their life is usually what they'll say. Now, the ones that have used that in a negative way, they don't want that, right? And there's been a few that are like, I'm never doing that again. It's like, yeah, it's probably not your thing because you are just so enamored of your ego and that thing gets real fragile in the medicine. So if you've got this big ego where, you got to dress yourself a certain way and you got all these neat little things you say all the time and you got to maintain this image you're presenting in social media, yeah, ayahuasca's not for you. Because it will cause that identity, that image you're presenting to fucking get blown apart, right? And what most will do if they have an affinity for that is it'll get blown apart and then they'll spend the next several weeks stitching it back together, which is absolutely the most dangerous thing anyone could do. Because you took it to see. Now you don't want to see. You understand that you're dealing with that which created everything. It don't like you doing that. It don't like you picking and choosing where you want to be for a moment. It don't like it. I don't think it likes it. If it has an affinity, that's not it at all. How would I put this? Its main intention is to take you beyond the thing you made yourself, right? Which is your own identity. You created all that. And all the words and all the catchphrases and the inflections you use when you talk and yeah, you made all that up. And the fact that your inflections seem to be the same seems like this is all very rehearsed. I don't think spirit likes that much either. I think it likes it genuine, impromptu, right now, present. So come from now, not some script that you can tell when people do it too, because there's always editing in it. You can see the editing. It's like, oh, you didn't like what you said there, so it's like, just let it go. Let it flow. If you want to be helpful to people, be honest about what your life is. Mine's difficult. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It has some very wonderful beings in it and some wonderful people in it, beings as well. But it's difficult because I won't stop. Right? I'm going to keep going until the thing looking out of my eyeballs is 2 pillars of fucking light. And I'm just kind of like a volcano rocketing up to heaven.
If it was easy, could be kind of boring.
Well, easy is a funny word. Depending on how you're using it. It's a human thing to think, well, if it's not easy, then it's not worth it. But that comes from his own retarded understanding. Consciousness is easy. Losing it makes everything very difficult. Right? And it's like, well, and I don't mean just the consciousness, that I don't want to be judgy, but the people are operating with. I'm talking about dimensions beyond that, above that, way above that, right? That you can actually take the thing looking out of your eyeballs. And if you can, here's one way it can happen, because there's actually like little techniques that were developed as to how so Don Juan calls where your feeling center is and where you're viewing the world from. That's the assemblage point. So it's a place, it's the energetic quality of you, right? And it has a feeling, right? But it has access to so many feelings. And it's directly can amplify what's looking out of your eyes. So you can actually peel back the layers of what you call physical reality and see beyond that, right? And that's the thing that does it, right? But if you have no will, that doesn't move. It gets fixated in this life, right? So everybody's really fixated here. Oh my God, there's dust on the table. Shut up there. They get fixated in this world, right? Which means that assemblage point, that point of contact, is fixated. It's stuck, right? And a lot of people can live that way their whole life and enjoy it. The path isn't for them. This is what they're doing. This is a big enough universe for everybody to be at every fucking degree of any kind of development or whatever you want to call that. Everywhere. Even here. People are at different varying degrees of how expanded their consciousness is. Right? And so how will I put this? This is just so weird to talk about. That in the everyday world, the only way you're going to break your habitual locked up assemblage point is silence in the mind. You'll have to go in and listen to what goes on in the mind. And you'll have to figure out how you can either silence it if it's your own, or to be able to take your will away from it and bend it more towards what's looking out of your eyeballs, less towards what you think. And fixate it there. And then when you got it fixated there, if you take your focus and put it at the back of your head. Then have your consciousness trace back to that point. You'll watch it go, whoop. Right? So there's shifts you can do. Like you can shift it down over here and everything starts to get, the molecules start breaking up. You start entering dimensions that are not physical. Are you as this person entering that? No, the thing looking out of your eyeballs is immersing itself in that while it's still in the body. Pretty fucking spectacular feat. That you can be sitting in the body, but what's looking out of your eyeballs and the dimension it's existing in is far beyond where the body is. Right? This is how I think that, like when Jesus was crucified, how you stand it. You're beyond it. The presence in you, that assemblage point, that point of contact where your soul is making contact with what you call you, is out beyond you. You're not going to feel what's going on in here. I mean, I think that's how Carlos lived with the illness he did. He had heart issues, but you never noticed. Occasionally, you would. His energy would get a little low, and it would hit. And you'd see it. You'd see the effect. But other than that, it was like there was nothing wrong with him. But in those moments where there was nothing wrong with him, which with him was most of the time, it was a higher state of presence. Right? So hanging out with him, there was no effort to go into those dimensions beyond what is normal for society. Easily. You existed there when you were with him. Right? It was when you weren't around him that you got spooked. Because now all your old habits, all your old ideas, or you see what they're doing to you because you've been spending so much time away from them that you go back and you see what it's really like. It's kind of like when you've been living up here a while. You go back to the suburbs to visit your mom. It's like, whoa, there's so much noise and so much activity. It's a little shocking, right? But when you were there, it wasn't at all. It was normal as can be. Right, you lived in the burbs, you grew up there, no problem, it was great. You moved to the mountains, you stay there for 3 months without going anywhere. You wander back into that city, and it could be anxiety. You're like, whoa, it's just overwhelmed. Right? It's like you've always been overwhelmed. You just normalized it. Right? And those are the things that are going to be hard for people to discover because you're going to have to break loose from this habitual way you live to be able to see if it's harmful for you or not. That's why Dieta is so good. Because anything you do in the world, you ain't doing in that Tambo. You got 6x8 room with mosquito netting and a bed in the middle. Yeah, you ain't doing much. You can go outside, I guess, but you still aren't doing much. You sure aren't doing your lifestyle. Mm-mm. So then when you come home and put your lifestyle back on, now you'll know what it does to you. You'll feel whether it's draining you, whether it's pushing you back into anxiety. And if you are a responsible human being, you'll clean that shit up because you're just damaging your feeling center and eventually you won't want to feel, which I think is exactly what the society does. Push you into that pressurized place so much that you give up your will. And the minute you give up your will, you don't have that feeling center anymore. You will have, sensations, emotions. But you won't have that. You won't have the soul. You won't have that connection to it. It won't hold you anymore. It will let go of you. And you'll have to just swim around and live on surrogate energy. Most likely you'll plug yourself into the internet when it's available. Plug your head right into it. Let them stick a poop tube up your butt and you can go sit in a little, pod and join the Matrix. Because I don't, all the things that we're building technology for, we're capable of. We just put our energy into building it to do it outside of ourselves instead of inside of ourselves. And there's plenty of stories of, if you've hung out with a lot of native tribes, there's plenty of stories of that elder man. He crossed 200 miles in an hour. We watched him walk out of the jungle. He was there an hour later. It's like, you went 200 miles. What? Carlos disappearing in front of me. Don Juan pulling that on him constantly. Scared the shit out of him. Right? And I had enough experience with things that were ooh, that's a big deal before he disappeared in front of me. So I wasn't terrified. I didn't run away. I stuck around. I knew that, oh, man, this guy could really do anything he wanted me. I wouldn't have any fucking power over him at all. So I'm going to trust him and have faith that I'm in the right place. And thank God I did. I don't think I'd be here, and I don't think I would have sifted through all the garbage you got to go through just to find some genuine path within yourself. Because everybody's out there spouting it like a fucking life coach, and it's driving me nuts. Because I've met some of these people who pretend to be life coaches, and they're a goddamn train wreck. If you look at their lives, it's a goddamn mess. It's like, how are you a coach to anyone else, man? Your anxiety is so fucking sky high. I can't even stand being around you. How is that? So it does. It takes a lot to sift through all of this garbage to get to a place where you can actually be one-on-one with your own soul, that you get that communication to be clear by. And how do you do that? You, within yourself, shut the fuck up. And just let the soul's energy come in. And if it's excruciating, that's not going to last. You'll go through that for a little while, and then that'll smooth out, and then it'll start making sense. Whatever it is it's trying to tell you. But you've got to go through that initial discomfort of it coming into you, because it's uncomfortable if it hasn't been there for a while. Right? It's almost like it expanded you, and then when you chose to get rid of your soul, you contracted. Now it's coming back in. It's going to expand you again, and that's going to be painful, especially when you're so contracted that the opening up is going to be like a dude going through pain and becoming a werewolf. It's going to be that internally. It's going to be that in the feeling center. It's going to be that as the shell that covers that assemblage point gets crashed open so you can actually emanate life force and be alive in a world. And it takes a lot, right? But again, the sifting through the bullshit is so insane. Because how many wellness retreats are there now? I think that's a growing business.
It's more than we need.
The fact that it's a business, here's the thing that I think is very dangerous about that. Which is why I don't want any fucking commercial sponsorship of this at all, because I don't want to participate. You can't market the spirit. You can't market soul. You can't market miraculous healing. You do that, you are in deep shit. You can, I believe that it is fine for people to hold ceremonies, absolutely. But know your job there. Don't market that you're some fucking healer. Fuck that. You are someone there that can be responsible enough that if someone starts going sideways, you can handle it without anyone getting hurt or too much trauma going on other than what they're experiencing in the ayahuasca from something they have to be going through. You don't exacerbate that at all. You don't come up and think that you waving a feather in their face is going to do a goddamn thing for them. It's not. A little cold water on the head and a pat on the back will do a hell of a lot more. No talk, not what you say to them necessarily, although sometimes you have to. It's like, hey, hold it together. It's just going to go on for a little bit longer. I know it's rough. Just hold together. You'll feel really good here soon. I just need you to hold it together for a little bit longer. And then they'll hold it. If you just know how to interact with people in that space, and I think a lot of them don't. I think they get the idea in their head of what that person needs, and they miss what that person needs because that person's soul is trying to tell you what it needs, but you're too busy thinking you've got the answer. You're in trouble. Right? I mean, that's the real fine-tuning of it is you're sitting in there, and as something starts to happen with someone, you better have the wherewithal to not intrude in their experience, but to be able to observe it as if through a window. Right? Not judge it, to see what help they need. Because they're not going to be able to communicate it to you in a way that's rational by any stretch. And so you have to be able to handle that. And then there's those moments also where someone starts to do what I call the loop. And they just start looping. Loop. It's like they're going, it's almost like they're in a spin cycle. And it starts getting mental and they start talking. Right? And then they start writhing on the floor a little bit. Someone goes, is he okay? Yeah. What's happening? Well, that's healing. That's what that is. They look at me because usually they get freaked out, right? People, when they're watching someone else do that, it could freak them out, and that can send the vibe in a weird way. So when someone's doing that, I allow it to happen because you don't stop that. And it's not violent. It's just they're floppy, getting a little floppy. There's nothing to do about that. You just watch it. You're just watching. If something needs to happen, yeah, that soul will tell you what needs to happen. And you're in that space, hopefully, that you can hear that. And you can hear that communication before anyone else even notices anything's going on. Right? But when someone else is looking at that going, oh, getting a little freaked out by their flopping, I'll walk up to him. You all right? Yeah, is he okay? Yeah, he's fine. What's happening? That's healing. That's his healing. It has to be beyond his control for him to really receive the medicine. He hasn't matured to a point where he can handle that within himself and know what to do with it. So he gets to the point where he's out of control, and that's what happens. But it's fine. He'll be fine. An hour later, he's fine. And then he wakes up the next morning with a smile on his face and feels better. It's like, right. What happened? Sometimes it's important to talk about it, but not always. Not always. And so, there's a lot of these people that I think part of the garbage you got to sift through is like integration stuff. It's like do you have a degree in psychology? Do you really understand what thoughts you're putting in people's heads? Do you really understand the advice you're giving them yourself? Are you sure that's right for them? Or is it that it's right for you, that means it's right for them? There's narcissism in that. Right? So it's one of these things where, there's plenty of people wanting to do that work and, I want to serve. It's like, you've really got to clean your life up. I mean, literally, truly clean it up. Not have a ayahuasca shaman persona and then who you are behind the scenes, a complete fucking monster. Right? You got to be on the up and up. And me, I'm an old school guy. I like discipline. I like quiet. I like as little chaos as possible. Right? I like peace. I like consciousness. I like power. I like intelligence. I like the things that, keep a world stable. Right? And, so that's where I'm coming from with it. Some people think that's a little too masculine. That's fine. There's other people doing it. But for me, it's no. For me, it's about behavior. It always has been about that. It's never not going to be about that. Because behavior is everything you do. And a lot of what people do is what's damaging them. It's not what's happening to them. It's what they're doing. It's marginalizing things that are absolutely important. It's marginalizing the thing looking out of their eyeballs and not seeing the value of it. How valuable that is. And that not only is it valuable, it's growable. And Carlos always told me, I'm like, so Carlos, do you believe we have a soul? He's like, well, I don't think you're born with it. I think you develop it. So soul is like your dedication through will, through maturity, through understanding, through silence, to the soul is your connection to the thing that's making everything. The thing that will inform you much like it informs the tree to start growing leaves. And there's no need to second guess it, and there's no need to, feel like it's not going to happen for you. Right? But we get this idea, this list of things that we think we need based on the identity we have. You're already lost. That's all. You're already halfway gone. It's how do you back up? How about this? I actually offered this as a piece of advice to a friend of mine. I'm like, don't spend any money. As a matter of fact, get all this shit out of your room. All the records, all the books, get all this shit out of your room. Just get out. Spend your money on eating and staying warm and keeping in a home. That's it. Gas, whatever you got to do. No extras. And do that as long as it takes for you to be comfortable with just having that. Right? And hopefully just having that will free up a whole lot of energy for you to do some work on yourself. Because most of the consumption is an escape. It's not necessary. Right? People eat way more than they need to. Most of the time. Again, not everybody. It's a general statement. not trying to be absolutely precise and scientific. I'm not going to break out data and fucking numbers.
Probably,
57%.
I probably more than I should.
I'm a bit of a fat ass on the inside, but not outwardly, but internally.
It's just kind of, it's very hard, I think, for people to be able to rescue their will from the dominant narratives, right? And it's like, you realize that's what they're putting them out there for, right? All these big social issues. Are they real? Are they important? I guess. But are you applying soul to it? Are you applying will to it? Are you tuning in to what's truly real and right and beyond your noise and implementing that? Because I think if we all did that, we all took responsibility for what's looking out of our eyeballs and gave that the value it deserves and try to listen to it to see what the right way of living is, we wouldn't have any of these problems. None of them. But the fact that we walk away from that or are led away from that, you're in a barren desert. You sit there long enough, suddenly that circus over the hill, ooh, that's enticing, and into the circus you go, where it's just fucking clowns, spooky clowns, and things that just go round and around and around and around and around, and they never fucking stop, and flashy lights and fucking chaos. And that's how I see it. Whether that makes me or not, I don't know. I feel pretty good inside of myself. But yeah, I think the society is sick, like insane and sick, right? And is it the people in it? Well, society is what they've been subjected to. It's almost like they got jabbed with it, and it's in them now, right? And who's at the helm of this? Who creates these narratives that come out of nowhere, right? Out of nowhere. Who's doing that? Who's pumping it up? Who's doing that? Because that person is disturbing our peace. Whoever those people are, they're disturbing our peace. And the citizenry needs to become citizens again, not consumers and not people with their will bent to the current agendas. You have to rescue that. So for me, the true revolutionary is going to be the one that pulls their will out of that, gives that back to the, to implementing the soul. So have a deep connection to what's looking out of their eyeballs, because that's going to guide them through this darkness better than anything. It's the only thing that will, right? It's the infinite knowledge. It's like whatever you're going through exists inside of that. And that thing knows exactly what that is. You don't, right? You're existing inside of the situation. Do you realize the situation is existing inside of the field you call spirit and life and infinity? And if that's intelligent, it knows exactly what that is. You don't, it does. So it can tell you where you are. It can show you the way. Right? It's very interesting because over the years, like Christianity's been hammered on, and I understand why. Absolutely understand why. But it's made it corny. It's made everything corny. It's made even wanting to engage your soul or speak in those ways corny at best. You got tons of atheist comedians making fun of it. You believe in a guy in the sky. It's like, no, you're a shallow fuck who hasn't gone deep enough to understand what that all represents. But you're going to get a laugh out of being a shallow fuck. Yay, good for you. Bill Maher is one of them. You want to belittle people of faith, you asshole. You just, all you have is complaints. Really. And it's like you don't understand it. Because, it's not your world, man. Hollywood's your world. And that's got to be all-consuming. So you don't have time to sit back and actually let go of this identity you spend so much time grooming so people keep paying attention to you. Take that attention and aim it within. Then you might find that you might have some remorse for what you said. Because I know that, through the progress of this work, there are times where, for lack of a better way of putting it, don't take it literally, you're standing right in front of God itself. that which is looking out of your eyeballs and animating you and animating the planets, making matter possible across the universe, is staring right at you. Right? And you have to be able to look at it without shame and guilt. And I'll tell you what, when it looks at you, everything you've ever done that has been damaging will be so fucking acutely felt right in that moment. You will know exactly where you went astray. You'll know exactly where you took a wrong turn. You'll know exactly how you're weaving a pattern that's dangerous for you and the people you say you love here. And that, to me, is the repentance. It's the turning around. To repent is to turn 180 degrees. If you have walked away from your own soul, the thing that makes you feel inside and that thing that actually loves, then you have to repent. You have to turn around and walk back to it. Right? And to stand in front of that presence, you wouldn't walk into heaven with any stain on you. It's not that it kicks you out. You wouldn't walk in there with a stain on you. You know that's disrespectful in a way that's infinite and deeply, deeply sacred within you. That you will not walk into those halls with these fucking blemishes on you. That you will turn around and you'll go back and you'll work on the blemishes. And hopefully you won't get sucked into being distracted from that again and live a whole life of debauchery and go up there and be even more stained than you were the first time. You understand what I mean? Because it's not, you're being judged. It's when full consciousness dawns on you, you'll see exactly how you behaved. You'll see all the selfishness, all the jealousy, all the arrogance, all the psychopathy, all of it. Anything you've ever done, you'll see it. You'll feel it. It'll be there. And you just got to let it go. It invites you to let it go. But to let it go and bring it back, you're a fool. An absolute fool. That's why I don't think anyone's, there's not a lot of people. Again, that's why you got to sift through the garbage. There's so much garbage. No one thinks there's repercussions to anything. Yes, there are. And they're deep, deep, deep and unnoticeable by most. Like, you watch people behave and then they feel like shit. And they don't even put it together. It's like, oh, shit, yeah, I know, they'll do it. And it's like, maybe you drink too much. No, it's not that. You can't even put two and two together to recognize why you don't feel good. That's a lost puppy, right? We weren't meant to be that dumb. And me and Wally were talking yesterday. I'm like, did you ever notice when you were in school? I mean, maybe it didn't happen in your guys' time, but definitely happened in ours. That if someone, I'm not saying the smart kid, the nerd, because there were them too, but the kid that showed up to school on time, got his work turned in on time, got good grades, and was, not causing any issues, kind of got bullied. That he was frowned upon, and you think you're smart. So to be the dumb, guy that, who builds his identity based on what he wears or whether he's on the football team or how many girlfriends he can have and how many people he can dominate, that's what was looked up to. Smart people, and I don't mean the nerds, because they're dangerous too. Bill Gates is dangerous. Right? Jeff Bezos is dangerous. Elon Musk is dangerous. I'm not saying they're bad, but they have a capability of being far more dangerous than the rest of us. That's what I mean. Far more dangerous, right? But, so there were them, but those are the people who got made fun of. The ones that were, trying to mature. And even look at our society. I mean, a lot of these guys, they show how immature they are on a regular fucking basis. It's like, oh my God, what's going on here? It's cool to be just a little jokester, a little joker. Yay! It seems to be cool.
It can seem like freedom because, I don't want to grow up, so there's this sense of freedom that you can just remain a child. And that responsibility is like, oh God, that's doing what my parents said. I'm not going to do that.
The devil is clever.
Yeah, so.
As you thinking the shiny image over here I can lay on you, you're going to love it. And all it's going to do is numb them out and not make them realize you gave up your soul for just clowning around.
Yeah, it's like the ego is king. Like people worship the ego. Like whoever has like the biggest ego is the person that is worshipped in the room. It's
Right.
you know, at least in school, you know, it's
the idea of
interesting.
getting rid of the ego, because there was a lot of that. I mean, you know, that was like the 90s. You just have to get rid of your ego. It's like, you need that. See, you're going to interact in this. What are you going to do? Just, I mean, that seems okay for some, but yeah, not everybody's a Buddhist monk. They're not going to sit there and meditate for the rest of their lives. You got to have some kind of interaction, right? So, is ego bad? No, it should just never be taken as the driver of the car. Don't put it in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And don't even let it be a navigator. It sits in the back seat and complains. That's what it does. Right? Spirit drives. The connection through soul sits in the passenger seat. Your ego sits in the back. And the ego looks up and goes, "Where the fuck you taking me?" It's like, you're going to be fine, as it drives into oblivion.
Yeah, there's like the captain and the admiral analogy, where it's like ego's that the captain and the spirit of the soul is the admiral, you know? So it's like they're driving the boat, but, you know, spirit's, you know, is controller of the fleet, you know?
I always put it as your life is, imagine your life is a big ship on the ocean. Spirit is the captain, and you should be very thankful you're a first mate.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how would you be having any of this experience? Anything. How could you experience anything? Right? And, you know, it's like without the will, you're going to experience what you're programmed to experience. If you don't own that will, which means you don't have some courage to go be, you know, do something different. I mean, that is taking your will out of fixation and moving into something new and letting energy go there. But if the will is trapped by that phone or by all the narratives of what's going on in the world, yeah, you don't have control of your will. So you're basically going to be led around. And you're going to, you know, and the way you're going to describe it is, well, I have to do this. Oh, God, I got to go do that thing again. It's like, well, you don't actually have to. If you just get out of that web you're in and put your will in a different direction, you'll find that the world's pretty open. And there are many ways to do many things. And this way you do it all the time, this habitual way, might not be that conducive for you anymore. But the only way you're going to figure that out is you're going to pull your will out of that, allow yourself to live in, you know, maybe go through a period of lacking, maybe a period of discomfort. And that's why, you know, the higher realms are for the courageous. They're not for the weak of heart, because you're going to have to change habits, like on a dime. You know, it's like when we go to the jungle. Yep, I like to drink my coffee. Boy, do I like to drink my coffee. But the minute we get to the jungle, there is none of that. Right? And just be okay to let it go. It's fine. You know, enjoy it when it's there. You'll know if you're addicted, you'll be going, fuck, I got to get out of this jungle and get me a cup of coffee. Right? Or you bring it with you. Right? I mean, that's the way you would play it. You know, but I just go without. It's fine. I don't need that. You know? I have my diet that I eat. And you go sit in a tambo for a month. It's rice and potatoes. There are no other options. And you'll be lucky if you get the potatoes. You might just get the rice. You never know. Some nights it's just the rice. It's shit. But you don't. You just deal with it. Right? So you allow the discomfort. A courageous person will. The ones that need it all prim and proper and perfect before they step in, there's no door there. That's a wall. There's no door there. The courage puts the door there, right? Something to open and step into something new. You know, it's the best way to live. You know, understanding that the only frontier that was ever all that interesting to explore is within you, right? The rest of the world is just for you to look at. It's for you to be a part of, but mainly to look at. The world you're supposed to be living is inside of you. That's the only place that you have any fucking say, is within you. You know, how you're going to respond. Again, the best thing you can do is learn how to respond to the things you can't control. Because that's everything outside of you. Everything. You can't control any of that. Right? But you can control how you're going to interact with it. Or if you're going to at all. If you're going to pay it a momentary glance, or if you're going to give it some attention. But to rescue your will is you decide what you're going to pay attention to. right? And you can fixate on all the news and the politics and drones in the sky and the gender war and this and that and this and that, or you can turn that attention inside and see what the soul has to say about all this. Because and the scary part is what the soul does is makes you aware of everything happening all at once. And you have to be able to look at that and not lose heart. The heart, to not lose heart, means you're going to keep going regardless of how dark it's getting, of how crazy people are getting. The fact that genocide is happening right now as we speak, still going on. Palestine that's genocide. There is no way around that. Anybody making excuses for doing that kind of shit to people? Yeah, you're just warmongers. There's no doubt about it. You don't have to be doing any of this. You can sit down with these people and talk to them. I'm sure you could come to an agreement if you could be just a little flexible. But instead, you want to be as Zionist pigs and fucking start killing everybody. It's dangerous. We're in a dangerous time. These drones in the sky, nobody knows what the fuck that is. If your own government won't even tell you what it is. It's like another level of surveillance. Seems a little more draconian than it was before. I mean, I thought, cameras at the stoplights was a little big brothery. This is really big brothery, goddammit, because I can't even, shoot that out. I could take a BB gun and take out a camera on a light pole, but what's it going to take to knock that fucking eye out of the sky? And so now everybody's going to be on their best behavior because the Opticon is in place, right?
Yeah, it's in many ways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And who knows what's underlying all that? Are they mixing drones in the sky with other things to hide things that truly aren't of this world? Who the hell knows? But these are the times we're in. And, the will has got to be within consciousness. If you really want to know what's going on, you have to look at it. You don't have to jump in and swim in it necessarily. If you're sensitive enough, you can just look at it and then let that connection from soul, you let spirit fill you to give you, for yourself, only for yourself, a clear view of what you're looking at to make it make sense to you in a way that you don't have anxiety, you don't have fear, and you recognize this is part of the cleansing. This is part of it. That the earth was going to be cleansed. Everybody said that across the cultures. There will be this moment. We're in it. I'm not convinced we're in it. I guess I could try to convince other people we're in it. That's not important. I know, at least I know I'm in it. I feel it. I can feel it. I can feel what's trying to push me out of presence. And I can feel that when the mind goes quiet and I've got all my attention and my will, this whole world disappears in front of me. Right? And that's a scary thing because this is all you know. As far as you know, this is all you know. And when that invites you to go dematerializing into infinity, that's a little intimidating. That's why you start young, right? As young as you can, and you keep sticking your neck into it so the fear is diminished. The fear keeps getting diminished. But what also keeps getting diminished is your identity, right? And then your ego becomes more like the character of the energetic configuration that is you. It's more of a genuine thing. But that even goes away, right? Until there's nobody there contemplating what reality is. There's just one being in reality. And that, that's a word. Those are words and, philosophical in nature, but the feeling of that is worth it. It's worth letting go of your identity. That's for damn sure. Because you float a little more, right? The anxiety, there isn't any. Feel anxious right now? Yeah, you.
No, I don't think so.
Good. He doesn't think so.
I know, he's thinking a lot.
Yeah.
He's doing
Thoughts.
good, I think.
He's making him awkward.
I know. It's sometimes fun to do.
Are you feeling awkward right now? Look at that look.
He's holding his breath.
Yeah. So don't turn the camera on yourself.
I come up to Isaac quite a bit and say, "How you doing, man?" Because I never know. I can't really tell. But I'm always coming up with a smile. So no matter if he's feeling good or bad, I'm always coming up with a smile. And it's like, so even if he's feeling bad, I force him into smiling anyway. Oh, it's kind of a rough day. Bring some levity.
Man. I'm awkward too.
Well, I mean, I was too.
I'm really awkward.
When I was around Carlos, around Joseph, God, around any of them, I was a nervous wreck, man. I just was always wondering if I was doing it right. Always. Oh yeah, doesn't it? Am I doing it right? I don't know if I'm doing it right. Am I sitting right? Am I sitting at the kitchen table right? I don't know if I'm doing it right. I mean, down to that, like almost neurotic, right? Really, really nervous tension. A lot of nervous tension.
I was kind of getting like that the other day too. When we were helping our friend,
for me, and I'll tell you what it was for me. I'm not going to say what it is for you guys because I don't know. That's your thing. But the way I would describe it is when you would go hang out with those elders, the amount of work they've done and the amount of personal power they can hold, it's like you're sitting next to a nuclear reactor. And it's just all this energy, and you can feel it, and you can swim in it, and it does make you feel enlightened, and it does make you feel like you have a connection to intelligence, to some dignity. But the fact that you haven't really generated that inside of yourself, it wears you out. And then it makes you feel awkward because they're all still in it, swimming, and you have reached your limit, and now you're a fucking fish out of water flopping around, and they're watching you, and you know they're watching you, and you know they're making jokes about you while you're flopping out of water, feeling all nervous and tense. God, I went through that. I mean, but the fact that what I was learning was so important to me, you can withstand that. Most people can't. Eventually they pop. I gotta get the fuck out of here. It's like, bye. I mean, I'm not going to say, whether or not I have that level of vibrancy that makes people kind of like, fucking start, what's the word? Crossing wires, frazzling out. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't claim that. I mean, that's for other people to, they are the ones who are going to be the recipient. It's up to them. It's not me. So I don't claim any power there. I'm just saying that when I experienced it, that's what that was. Their presence was so intense that I could hold it for a while. So if I was with them for a few hours, it was fine. But on a weekend, oh my God, I would be just fucking discombobulated by the end of it, just feeling awkward. I can't even look anybody in the eye because I feel so fucking awkward. So I get it. I get it. It's like you're dealing with something that is uncompromising. Right. That's that. And it wasn't that they were, mean or arrogant or any of that. The energy they put off was not compromising with you. So if you felt comfortable in a lower vibration, they're not coming down there to join you. They don't have that compassion to sink to your level. They're going to hold that and wait for you to come up. And it's going to be excruciating for you to get the fucking mud off your face and start climbing back the ladder out of the hole to join them in the ceremony that they're having. You know what I mean? I think that's really what it was for me. It's a sense of feeling intimidated, but it's not intimidation. It's the energy. It's too intense for you to fucking associate with. And so it just makes you kind of go, oh, fuck. What am I doing? What am I doing? I just want to go out. I'm going back to my room now so I can sit on my bed and go, what the fuck? Yeah, and I mean, when sometimes in Carlos's presence, the hair on the back of my neck would be standing up. I was so terrified of who he was. I thought he was the devil. Dude, there was, God, at least 3 weeks where I'm like, this guy's a fucking devil. Because I'm not feeling good in his presence. I'm feeling really at odds. But I can't stop. It's almost like he's pulling me in, and I can't. He won't let go of me, goddammit. I'm suffering. This is the fucking devil. I finally got over that. It took a while. It took about 3 weeks. But it was terrifying. Terrifying. He would come up, and I was just, oh, fuck, there he is. Because I did not. When you're around someone who's that energetically churning, it causes your shit to get stirred up in you. Right? That vibration coming off of them. Like, if you sat in a vibrating chair, you're going to have to take a shit in about 20 minutes if it's really vibrating because you're loosening everything up. Right? So all that shit you've got buried down and you've pushed down so deep, you sit next to him and just the vibrational waves coming off of him is like pulling that shit to the surface. You're just like, oh God, why am I having these thoughts? Shit, he's sitting right there. I can't be having these thoughts right now. He's sitting right there. He's watching me have these thoughts. Fuck. And then figuring out, shit, he hears those. So there is no escaping anything. And I would tremble. I would just sit there and tremble. Dude, I got so nervous I would just sit there. Like Gollum. Oh, fuck, what's happening to me? Because I would feel the identity that I, had propped up for so long and actually was pretty good at it, shattered. I had nothing to fall back on. So nothing to fall back on. My shield to keep all that truth out is shattered. And here it is as a wave coming, hitting me every fucking day. And I'm already fucking tired. Right? I'm already wigged out. And now it's hitting me again and again and again for 2 straight years with Carlos again and again and again and again and again. They all have a different flavor about them. Because Joseph was just terrifying. He was mean and scary. But he will talk to you as an adult. But he's still mean and scary. Yeah. He didn't give a fuck. Your feelings surely did not matter to him at all. And he was just slamming you left and right. That's one way. But the quality was pretty much the same. It just was the time in my life. But their methods were completely different. It's like Don Juan's methods weren't Carlos's. Carlos had a completely different list of methods he used to wake your ass up. And not to be woke, to wake your ass up. And for some, over the years, for some, when they wake up, I said this a couple of weeks ago, that when they wake up, they're waking up from a nightmare and everything is crystal clear and they don't have any other work to do. They just had to wake up from the nightmare. A good chunk of them, they woke up and it was a fucking mess. So they had to spend several years cleaning up that mess before that would be pristine enough for the soul to be able to be developed. Because you can't develop the soul in a divided home. So if you're at odds with yourself, there is no development of the soul, and you can't hear it anyway. You wouldn't be able to hear spirit at all. Because the soul is the connection to spirit. And what that is a precise configuration of the totality of your energy. It can't be fragmented across 1,000 different important things. It has to maintain the most important thing. And then has to look out in the world. There are days where you can do something about a situation or a project. Other days you just need to leave it alone. And if you don't have that connection to the soul, you're going to burn yourself out thinking all this shit needs to be done tomorrow. And it's an infinite world. It's going to keep going and going and going. Well, you don't get done, someone else will. And I think we're just afraid to put the brakes on everything and just sit back. Maybe go sit on the back porch with a neighbor for a day and not be, always looking for the next transaction. Right? Because, part of the garbage you're going to have to go through in the spiritual realm, if you're going to go into any of that kind of community, is, that you're going to have to change the value system a little bit. You're going to have to really understand what is conducive to that growth and what's not. And consumption isn't. You're going to have 10,000 crystals, you're not getting anywhere. You'll probably have a headache at some point because you ever walked into a crystal shop? It's like, get me the fuck out of here. There's just so much going on in here. It's too much. So you got all these crossing energies going on. What time is it?
We're almost 2 hours in.
Yeah. You guys got anything? Sure.
I just like what you're just saying. I think I know I love my metaphors, but it's like kind of like you have to do that work because, it's like your soul is kind of like a seed. Your body is like the soil. You have to do all this work to kind of make that soil the right conditions for that seed to sprout and be able to grow. Mm-hmm. So, it's like you wake up and, there's all this stuff. You got to, tend to that soil and make it the right conditions for that thing to be able to sprout and grow.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's ancient fucking scripture. Garden. Right? You have to weed the garden. Anything that doesn't belong there, you got to take it out, right? And what are you doing? You're growing to bear fruit. And people want to think bearing fruit is, I'm living my best life. I'm enlightened. To bear fruit, what's interesting is, okay, so you grow the tree of life within you to bear fruit. Does the tree eat the fruit? Is the fruit for the tree? No. It's to feed others. That's what it is. Right? And for us, what is that? That's that divine connection that we have, that through discipline, through fucking hard work, through honesty, through being genuine, through being terrified and going through, jumping in the lake of fire, doing all that, staying on the cross, burning off the shit, getting the dross off you, separating the wheat from the chaff, clearing the dust off your lamplight. Yeah. It's all that. Right? And that's the work.
And it's to bear fruit for others, and then that's the interaction with others. So you're doing the work inside for yourself, not for others, but the fruit of that is the service to others.
Right. The amount of support you can give another while they're learning to grow in their own garden.
Mm-hmm.
And, and there's just not enough of that. There's too much competition and ridicule and belief clashing and, idealism clashing, and you should behave this way. And we all say namaste, all of it. It's just like, can we just be regular human beings exploring this together instead of all this, this is the right way. All ways are the right ways if they're done right. Even a murderer can figure out what he's doing eventually. Right? Ooh, shit. Yeah, it's like, yeah, buddy, you can figure that out too. Yeah. It's hold your head high. Have some dignity. Maybe focus in on what's looking out of the eyeballs. But if you have a hard time and your mind gets, this is advice for you. If you're having a hard time quieting your mind, do this with me right now because this is going to be fun. Fixate, right? All of your attention, all of your will, right there at your eyeballs. Now, take your focus, what that point you feel, that, core of that, and will that to the back of your head. Notice the change? See how everything loosens up? Molecules are looser. The room's floating. Right? You keep going in that. It fixates that point that is stuck in this really shallow physical world, and it pushes into other dimensions. And if you can stay with it and not have thoughts about what's happening, you'll find yourself there. Will your body still be here? That's irrelevant. Who cares? It's the point of contact that you're experiencing through is not limited to the body. Right? The body is limited to it, that's for sure. But it's not limited by the body. The body is regulated by it, but it is not limited by the body. So it can go way beyond it. And if you fixate at that point, you set that assemblage point there, and you put your will on it, and then all of your attention and awareness into it, you'll find yourself standing in that world. Now, you might not be able to go so far that you disappear from this one, but you can go pretty far in this one that everything's ethereal for you to where everything is solid and matter to other people. Right? It's like you're in a playground no one else knows exists. To them, it's all super important. And to you, it's just a playground. Just watching little shit happen here and there and here and there. Right? Checking out people as they walk through the airports and watching whether they're floating or whether they're heavy or whether they're leaned over. You start to observe the world from a whole different place. Right? Then it starts to make sense to you what the energetic patterns that are causing all this confusion are coming from. It's the first thing you notice. Once you step into peace, you recognize chaos real easily in somebody. Even in a hello, you can see all of that frazzledness coming off of them. Right? And if you don't have an immune system, and what is that? The soul forward is the immune system. Right? Because you're always going to be guided to what is true for you. What is best for you. If you have that soul forward, that connection enforced, that vibratory frequency clean, and the pipe it's coming down through to animate you absolutely clean, unfettered. That'll just guide you through all of it. Right? So be with that. It is you anyway. When you go away, that's what's there. So just go away. You know what I mean? Awesome. Well, let's wrap it up.
That's it.
Wrap it up. 68.
In the can.
I think at some point we're going to have to start making sense if we're going to keep doing this. You know what I mean? We're going to have to stop being these wacky fucking hippies in the mountains.
Not a whole lot of things make sense right now, so I mean, maybe it's
good.
fitting.
We fit in then.
Yeah.
It's all confusing, and I just did some more.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope that makes sense to people. I know there's some out there it does.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some out there that are beyond describing this and have actually felt it. Mm-hmm. And that's the people I'm looking for. That's why I don't want commercials interrupting this.
No,
it wouldn't go well. Yeah, no.
No.
So the only way we market this is we have a Patreon, possibly, right? We still have a Patreon.
Patreon, you can buy T-shirts too.
Yep, and then on our website, wideawakenbabylonpodcast.com, there's some merch there. Yeah, that's how we're going to support this. I mean, we've decided. Yeah. Either that or we'll pay for it, I guess.
Yeah. It's just,
what else you can do?
It's going to happen either way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're going to do it either way. So, but know that I am dedicated to no fucking commercials. I hate that, dude.
No one
It's not
likes
gonna
commercials anyways.
No.
Have you ever been watching a movie and then the commercial comes on and you're just
Well, we went from the TV to the internet because we didn't like commercials.
Yeah.
And now there's more commercials on the internet than there ever was on TV.
Yep.
And it's all these people like, who are you and what fucking product is this? You look like you live in a trailer and you got that weird vibe about you. It's like, what are you selling me? Anyway, don't buy ketamine through the mail. That's bad news. Anyway,
or at all.
No, it's just bad. Just don't do it.
At all.
Yeah, there's plants out there
Yes.
for you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, have a good night. See ya.
Lindos espíritu y luna, de los bosques hallaremos. Ahora llama irune. Cuidaremos cuerpo luna. Amiga y nirunaicito. Lindos espíritu y luna, de los bosques hallaremos. Ahora llama irune. Anay, nanay, nanay, nay, nay. Da, di, di, da, da, da. Nay, na, nay, na, nay, nay, nay. Da, 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 da.